Hello and welcome to the Full On Football podcast. We're here to discuss the age-old debate, Gerrard, Lampard and Scholes. Who is the best? Who is the best?
What's in that order?
What, Gerrard, Lampard, Scholes?
That's alphabetical. It makes sense, doesn't it? It's alphabetical for a reason, mate. It is in that order. There's no doubt about that. But we'll come on to it. First off, from you, I want to hear your perspective, which is probably wrong, by the way. You're a Man United fan, but let's go straight in. Who are you going for and why?
Do you know what? I'm going to be honest. I change my mind often on this.
You change your mind often, do you?
I think...
See, for me, there's a definitive answer.
Yeah, I know there is for you, and it's sort of, heaped in bias. Your
Is it, though?
Yeah, it is.
Is it, or am I right? I think you know I'm right.
No, it's your individual bias. The way I look at things is I'm not an expert, right, and I don't proclaim to be. I feel like I know a little bit about what I'm about.
I played centre midfield. I think I got a right to say.
Well, yeah, hey, fair enough, and I've done a spot of that in the past as well. But I look at, like I said, I'm not an expert. I don't claim to be. So I listen to people who I admire, and who are the elite.
Yeah.
Players like Zinedine Zidane,
Who said Gerrard's the best? Yeah.
Who said
when he got given Scholes,
when he got given the Ballon d'Or, he said, how does it feel to be the best player in the world? He says, I don't know, ask Paul Scholes. That's Zinedine Zidane's words, not mine. Xavi and Iniesta, something similar.
Yeah, watching him at La Masia and all of those things when it was rainy days. I've heard it all
Pep
before.
Guardiola would have, if he could have had any Man United player, it would have been Paul Scholes, and so on and so forth. Now, that's not the be-all end-all, because we've heard that about Gascoigne, which we definitively disagree about, so I do understand that. However, I feel that Scholes is very unique in his style, could do stuff that not any of the other two can, in my opinion, in terms of running a game of football with the tempo and stuff. That's a very skill. And stats about long-range goals that you'll probably give me about Gerrard, and how many times he shouted and stuff.
Yeah.
Scholes had a unique set of skills, and I think, judging by the fact that Zinedine Zidane and Xavi probably know football a bit better than me.
Do you think?
Yeah, I think so, just a little bit. They claim that, so that's why I think Paul Scholes is the greatest of them all.
Do you know, it's interesting, right? On the, if we could have gone on the quotes front, by the way, I haven't prepared a list of quotes.
No,
but you'll notice with a lot of these quotes, Zidane, Henry, for example, those are two that are sticking out to me.
Yeah.
Have both said and contradicted themselves, because Zidane's given other quotes where he said Gerrard's the best midfielder in the world. I'm sure you've seen them. Mm-hmm. Henry has given other quotes saying that Gerrard's the best opponent he's ever had. He's also done the same to Scholes. What I'm getting at here, do you notice Lampard doesn't get mentioned in these conversations?
Yes.
I disagree, because I think that Lampard, like I said, I think it's in that order. I always felt during their playing careers, Scholes was never really in this debate. It was always Gerrard or Lampard.
Do you think, though, because Scholes is probably 8 or 9 years...
Yeah, that definitely,
their senior,
of course.
In terms of peaks and stuff, and I think at the time that Gerrard and Lampard, probably 2004 to 2008, probably those...
Yeah, about that, and that's, later into Scholes' career, that's right.
And at that time, Scholes was a holding midfielder and didn't bomb on like he did in younger years, perhaps. I think that's probably fair. I'll take your point. Interestingly, mate, Lampard was always my favourite of the three.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think my first ever England shirt, 2006 World Cup in Germany, I had Lampard
that's
on the back.
That's who you were most like, by the way, in terms of a player, I think.
Me?
I think, yeah. Well, you like goals, don't you?
Yes, and
striking
if we're talking
the ball
of being effective, you struggle to see a more effective midfielder than Frank Lampard.
100%, mate. What a player. What I do want to put on record...
20 league goals the season Chelsea won the league in 2005.
He scored 20 in the season before, yeah. And look, I want to put it on record. I think... I hate to be... what's the word? Oh, well, just diplomatic for the sake of being diplomatic, but all three truly were world class. And I don't like the phrase world class, because I think it gets brandished about too much, and what does it actually mean? And I've always said to you, for me, it's like, if you picked a squad of the world to play against, like another world, if you will, say like a 23-man squad, would they be in it? I think those three probably would have been in it during their primes. So, exceptional footballers, and truly were world class. The thing for me, you're talking about effectiveness. I think Frank Lampard does win it on the goals and assists front, effectiveness. But I do think in his peak, Gerrard probably matched even slightly outperformed Frank Lampard, only for a couple of seasons. But it's worth considering. Would you agree if I put it to you, the Liverpool sides that Gerrard played in weren't great sides, were they? No. Whereas Lampard played in top sides, Scholes played in top sides. I think there's an argument that obviously you've got to be a good player to play in top side. I take that on board, of course. Big fish in a small pond and all of that sort of stuff. But would Gerrard not have been able to do what the other two had done at their clubs? Do you not think?
Yes, but there's always that argument, and this is me being devil's advocate.
Yeah.
Certain players suit being the main man.
Mm-hmm.
Others struggle to be a cog in a team. If you think of the 2006 sort of 2010 England side,
yeah,
Steven Gerrard was a good player in a good team. Okay, a team full of good players.
Yeah,
and wasn't the main man.
No, I think Rooney probably was. He was probably second.
Yeah, and obviously Gerrard did well in the big moments in qualifiers and stuff. He scored goals. Performances weren't great for England.
Yeah,
maybe you could argue that against.
I don't think. Yeah, but I mean, you could put that against Gerrard, but I think you could put that against all three.
Yeah,
I don't think any of the three. And I think they all, Gerrard and Lampard, definitely had the superior England careers to Paul Scholes. The pair of them both exceeded 100 caps, both scored best part of 20 goals for England, which obviously Scholes didn't. Talking about I want to come on to being a big game player. Again, I do think. By the way, what you mentioned about Paul Scholes' unique set of skills, controlling the tempo, you mentioned controlling the tempo, I do agree. I think he was... Players in my life, Xavi, Scholes, Toni Kroos, probably Pirlo, that's probably about it. When I think about players setting a tempo, Gerrard had it to a certain degree, not as much as those four. Great passer of the ball, great at everything, but that was one skill he had that perhaps Gerrard didn't. But in terms of everything else... I can't see there's anything that Scholes was really better than Gerrard at. Long range passing, I'm going to give him.
Yeah.
That's not because Gerrard was bad at it. Gerrard's probably still in the top 5 I've ever seen. I think Scholes just is in the top 2.
yeah.
So, but when we're going...
Who would you have as the other person in the top 2? Who would you have? Scholes and Toni Kroos? Pirlo.
Yeah, both feet. That's what I liked about Pirlo.
Yeah, fine.
But in terms of just one long-range pass, if I could back anybody to hit it, it'd be Paul Scholes, probably.
Yeah.
It's just the fact Pirlo could do it off both feet. But look, in terms of if we actually levelled out all of their attributes, everything that they do in a game of football, I think with Steven Gerrard, obviously that's my answer, but is there anything he wasn't a 7 out of 10 at? As in less than a 7 out of 10. Because you could think of plenty of things for Scholes. A long list of things, by the way. Lampard was quite a rounded player. There won't be many, but there'll be a few things. He wasn't the quickest. That's just one off the top of my head. Gerrard was pretty much everything. So in the areas where Scholes, for example, exceeds Gerrard, long-range passing, if Scholes was to be a 10 out of 10, Gerrard's probably a 9 or 9.5. He's not a mile off him. No. But then you look at every other area of the game, tackling, heading, leadership, goals, everything, mate, engine. It's just quite
complete.
Heavily in favour of Gerrard, yeah.
Yeah, Scholes couldn't tackle to save his life. My dad used to always say that, he can do everything apart from tackle. And it was just a running joke that he would always get booked in a game because he was so hopelessly bad at tackling that he would always get booked and sometimes sent off. Gerrard, very good at tackling.
Very good at tackling. Good at everything, wasn't he?
Very, very busy. And that... It depends who you want... Because you talk about Xavi. Gerrard probably beats Xavi on individual...
Yeah, he does, but then it comes back to the collective...
Yeah, so that's why it's difficult. Man for a big occasion, Steven Gerrard was a joke. And if he'd have gone to Chelsea when he did and Real Madrid when he did, you could be talking about a player that's won 4 European Cups. He really could. Jose tried signing him at Chelsea, tried signing him at Inter Milan, tried signing him at Real Madrid. All three clubs
he did,
tried signing him.
And Sir Alex Ferguson tried signing him more than once as well.
Yeah. An elite player. I take your point. Man for the big occasion, Steven Gerrard. Frank Lampard again, scoring in a lot of big finals.
This is it.
Didier.
Frank Lampard, Champions League man of the match. Same as Gerrard, by the way, Istanbul, Champions League man of the match.
Similar teams at that time.
FA Cup final, man of the match, FA Cup final goals. Gerrard, UEFA Cup final, FA Cup final, Champions League final, League Cup final. List goes on. Lampard exactly the same. The goal to win Chelsea the league for the first time, Frank Lampard. Men for the big occasions. They very much were. I'm not accusing Scholes of not being the man for the big occasion, but he didn't
Barcelona 2008?
Yeah, he didn't start a Champions League final for Man United.
He did.
Didn't start one.
He did.
Did he?
2008.
Did he start?
Broke his nose, I think, went off, after about 75 minutes.
Stand corrected.
Yeah.
Stand corrected. Didn't think he did, because obviously 99 he was suspended, wasn't he?
Of course, yeah, he was,
Yeah.
Which
So-
is, exactly.
But you think about like big games players, and I think there's obviously different ways to win a game. Running a game, controlling a game. I understand it's not all about goals. I come back to I even think Frank Lampard was a really rounded footballer. I don't think he was just, people talk about, I think people disrespect Lampard, because again, I see all of these quotes, and it seems to have been, during their playing careers, this is certainly my perception, I felt like it was Gerrard Lampard. I didn't feel like Scholes was ever in this debate. Since they've all retired, I feel like it's Gerrard and Scholes, really, that get the main two.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I think it's really harsh on Frank Lampard, because I think, again, people talk about him just being like a midfielder that scores goals as if he did nothing else. Well, he did everything.
Oh, he did everything. And he's top goal scorer for Chelsea as a central midfielder.
It's unbelievable.
Really, at their prime, people used to have Gerrard ahead of Lampard. I always felt like it was a bit of a toss-up. At their very best, I didn't feel like there was a lot in it. And I think there is a big argument, as much as you might disagree, Gerrard playing in a team that he was so far and away the best player throughout his career has only helped him become that much more of a larger-than-life character, a larger-than-life legend at Liverpool, that he was carrying quite often an average team that had good times and did play in good sides, but they were never the best side, and they were often there on being quite industrious as a side. I look at the 2008-2009 Rafa Benitez team, as good as they were, they were dogged.
Mascherano and Alonso.
Yeah, it was very
built
on a back four that Gerrard and Torres would go after them go after a team for sort of 20 minutes of a game and would score a couple of goals, as opposed to being collectively on the front foot dominant for sort of 38 games.
Yeah.
Istanbul, poor side, really. We look back,
100%.
poor side. The UEFA Cup side of the treble of, what was that,
2001,
2001. He's just coming onto the scene. A good team, but never the best team. So I think it works in his favour in terms of how good he was dragging them to it, but I think it was probably easier for him to be the main man because there was no one really rivaling him at that time.
It helps. You can argue it both ways, of course, because I can sit here and argue that he'd have scored the goals Frank Lampard scored the better side.
I think
he
would.
Might have done,
yeah,
but obviously the big fish and small pond, as I mentioned, it's a valid point. Okay, judging it from different angles, I'll put it to you. If we're going to go on, so judge it two ways. We judge it as the longevity over their career, or we can so their career as a whole, or we can go on their peaks.
Go on, yeah.
In terms of their peaks, again, do you know what? I'll argue the case for Frank Lampard against Paul Scholes, rather than arguing for Gerrard, just to make my point. Frank Lampard finished second in a Ballon d'Or. Like, he came second place, which Gerrard didn't do, by the way. Gerrard only got a third place finish. Paul Scholes didn't even receive a vote. So you think about the peaks of the players. Was Paul Scholes ever the best player in the world?
What do we think of the Ballon d'Or at times, mate? Michael Owen won that, didn't he?
Yeah, deservedly so.
He was never the best player in the world.
But, point is, Paul Scholes was never close to being the best player in the world. Wasn't the best player at Man United. I know Gary Neville will say best player in training every day. We all thought he was the best player, and perhaps he was. Perhaps he was the best player at England training. There's levels to this game. Frank Lampard's better than Paul Scholes.
But, okay, your point about Ballon d'Ors it could be nonsense, because you could be...
Yeah, but he didn't get a vote. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, fine, but...
How many Premier League Team of the Years was he in?
No idea.
None.
But can you... Okay.
We can't all be wrong, can they?
Unsung hero, at times, you could argue that certain players just don't get the recognition they deserve until after.
Yeah, you don't know what you've got till it's gone and all of that. Yeah, I do
Certain
get it.
players, you think, what's he got to do? Robert Lewandowski. And for me, should win the Ballon d'Or 2 years in a row. I think they've announced it that Messi's won it.
Messi's going to win it, yeah.
Nonsense as far as I'm concerned. Messi is the best player in the world. Has he been the best player over the last year?
And he should have won
For
it
me-
last year, had not for COVID. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and you could look back and, well, Lewandowski didn't win a Ballon d'Or. So I take your point. Could you argue, and this is probably something I would say actually, that, and you might disagree, longevity over a career, Paul Scholes,
Yeah.
coming out of retirement at age 36, winning a league title, coming out of retirement to win a league title,
It's
unbelievable, and being controlling games of football at the top
Was it
level.
Man City? He came back to make his second debut. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
You know, you're talking Champions League semi-finals at 38, controlling games of football,
Yeah.
winning league titles, longevity over 20 years. You're probably talking Paul Scholes at that age, 37, 38, at that top level, and he was. Whereas Gerrard and Scholes probably didn't. Gerrard and Lampard probably didn't at that age be that good. Lampard at a peak, probably the best, 2004, 2005, but the better player might have been Gerrard. You could probably argue that, and that's probably how I'd look at it. As much as I like Scholes, and I think he's very unique, and I can't argue with the others, something about Gerrard, he was super.
I've looked at. I'm a sucker for clicking on. You know, you go scrolling through your Facebook, and the Gerrard Lampard Scholes debate comes up, and I'm a sucker for clicking on it. I don't think I've ever seen him not win. Like where they've done like a
Liverpool
85
fans love a poll, though, don't they?
Yeah, of course they do, but 85,000 people vote or whatever, and he always comes out on top. I just think it's quite. Again, I break it down to the. I think Lampard runs him quite close. I don't think people respect how good Lampard actually was.
I really don't think there's a lot in it.
But it comes down to attributes again. Like Gerrard was just incredible at everything, and I just don't see that there were weaknesses to Lampard's games. Only 2 or 3, not many. Wasn't the quickest, wasn't the best in the air. Gerrard was good at that.
Yeah.
I just don't see a world in which he's not the winner in this debate. And like I said, Lampard number 2 for me.
Do you know what? Do you take my point about longevity, though? Scholes probably has the
Well,
edge.
he had a longer career, but the other Lampard, no, because Lampard went on nearly as long as him anyway and was still scoring goals. Gerrard packed it in a bit earlier and went to the MLS just because.
Yeah, but so did Frank.
Yeah, but he played
2004
37 at Man City, was he?
Don't know. I'll have to look into it. I don't know. Mate, I take your point on that. I don't know. I really don't know. Michael Carrick, where does he fit in? Do you know what the thing is? You said about those 3, and what's interesting, probably 3 of the best penalty takers I've ever seen. Scholes taking. I don't know if I've ever seen Paul Scholes miss a penalty. FA Cup final 2005 against Arsenal. Only time I've ever seen him miss a penalty. Exceptional. Gerrard and Lampard always seem to find the top locker with a penalty.
Yeah, or bottom corners, yeah.
Exceptional penalty takers. Technique of those 3. That's something you don't really see many footballers, and we're blessed. And people talk about them playing in the same midfield, and obviously we never got to see it, and it's such a shame. Technically, probably 3 of the best footballers England have ever had. It's in technical ability, striking a football. No one strikes a football in the current England side like those 3. And we had 3 at the same time.
And yet we didn't play a 3-man midfield.
No, we'd put Scholes out on the wing. Or
Gerrard out on the wing.
maybe that's why it was Lampard, because Lampard was always the ever-present in midfield, whereas the other 2 did doggies on the wing.
Which one are you going with? You've changed your mind 3 times.
No,
here.
I will go for Scholes, but it's sort of the Roy Keane vote that, I've been in the trenches with him and he comes from a good stock and all that nonsense that he talks. I do think Gerrard probably has the edge.
Put it in an order.
Christ. Put it in an order, I would go Gerrard, Scholes, Lampard.
Right, so it's Gerrard then.
Yeah, it probably is, mate, but I just think you're blinded by your loyalty to Liverpool and the fact that you just love... He's your favourite ever player, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, so your vote is invalid. So it's down to me to choose.
I'm an unemotional man. I'm a borderline
I don't
psychopath.
I don't even like Paul Scholes. He's miserable as hell on the telly, so I'm basically unbiased in this, and I think it's Scholes. So it's 1-0 Scholes, final answer.
I've got to ask the listener how many times he's contradicted himself here.
I'm just a different. I just like to. I don't like to.
You got something against Frank Lampard? You haven't put him at the top.
He's my favourite of the 3.
He's your favourite.
Yeah, I just think the other 2 had
You
an
can't
inch
have
more.
favourites.
Well, I have. He's the only one of those 3 that I've ever had on the back of a shirt,
Yeah.
and on the basis of that,
It's Frank Lampard.
it's Frank Lampard. End of story.
Gerrard Lampard Scholes. Let us know what you think.